Approximately 18% of people struggle with an anxiety disorder every year. Anxiety is the most common of all mental health challenges, but it's also highly treatable. Yet only 37% of people struggling with anxiety will seek treatment. And what makes this particularly unfortunate is that there are a number of scientifically supported strategies which can be used to help cope with feelings of anxiety. Hi everyone, I'm Trevor Sullivan with Sullivan Associates Clinical Psychology, and today I'm going to discuss part 2 of my 2-part video topic, 7 essential strategies for calming an anxious mind. Before we get started, I invite you to subscribe to this channel. And if you're on YouTube, click the alert notification. That way, when we release more videos, you'll get notified. When people think about anxiety, there can be the viewpoint that anxiety isn't really an issue unless someone is dealing with anxiety attacks. However, what's more common, and at least as debilitating in the long run, are consistent low-grade symptoms of anxiety that never really seem to dissipate for very long. These symptoms can present shortly after waking and remain for the better part of the day, and sometimes spike in response to a stressor. Habitual feelings of anxiety can be uncomfortable and distressing, and if left unchecked, can lead to what feels like a chronically anxious mind, constantly focused on worries and interfering with the quality of your daily life. So with that in mind, I'm going to discuss 3 more strategies today to help calm an anxious mind. But before I do that, I'll briefly review the first 4 strategies covered in part 1 of this video in case you missed it. To recap, the first strategy for calming an anxious mind is to change your physiology, which will help interrupt the pattern of shallow breathing and tight muscles. And 3 of the best ways to do this are to take slow, deeper breaths, use a form of muscle relaxation, such as autogenic training or progressive muscle relaxation, and prioritize exercise. And with all of these strategies, even prioritizing a little bit of time during the course of your day can be beneficial. Second, it's important to use the right self-talk. One key form of self-talk is relaxing self-talk, which can help to calm the mind as opposed to filling the mind with more anxiety-provoking thoughts. And a second important type of self-talk is evidence-based self-talk. In this case, you're going to challenge anxious thoughts by looking at the evidence to the best of your knowledge. When doing this will help logic to prevail when coping with anxious thoughts, which will help to keep you more calm. Next, I encourage you to make problems the correct size. Your brain's job is to keep you safe, not to keep you calm. Because of this, there's a tendency to make problems bigger than they deserve to be. So be mindful of catching anxious thoughts quickly, make them the correct size, assign them the appropriate amount of worry, and then develop a plan to cope with them. For my 4th strategy, I encourage you to weave mindfulness into your day. Mindfulness has proven psychological effects on calming the mind and body, and has been shown to be effective even in small doses. So consider weaving mindfulness into different parts of your day. It's a very versatile technique that can be used whether you're sitting, standing, lying down, or even moving. Now for my 5th strategy for calming an anxious mind, and the first strategy for today's video, it's important to make peace with acceptance. For years, I've been saying to clients, assertively control the things you can and let go of the things you can't. Easy to say, not so easy to do. Generally speaking, we like control. Like our pal Patrick Warburton, the control enthusiast from the National Car commercials a few years back. As I mentioned earlier in the video, the brain is designed to keep us safe, and the more control we have over things, the safer we feel. But there are many areas in life in which we have little to no control, and this can cause significant feelings of stress and anxiety when our emotions are not managed well. The examples here are endless, and here are a few to highlight the point. Political unrest in the world, like we're seeing in the US, the war in the Ukraine, nature doing its worst with natural disasters such as hurricanes, earthquakes, and snowstorms, the state of the economy, the safety of your children, the safety of driving, and on it goes. But acceptance doesn't always mean there's a complete lack of control. When a situation can be influenced, it will likely make you feel calmer and more in control to try to influence it. But when things can't be changed or controlled, the only way to reduce feelings of stress and anxiety is to accept that there are many things in life that are beyond our control, and it's our job to relax and make peace with accepting them. Because fortunately, the things we can control typically work out. For example, I have faith that the structural integrity of the building you're sitting in right now is likely holding up, gravity is doing its job, the Earth continues to rotate around the sun ever so slightly, and heaven forbid, the internet typically works. If these aren't good enough reasons to make peace with acceptance, I have some good signs to help back it up. In a 2016 study by Dr. Simon Haynes and colleagues, they asked participants to indicate how they manage their emotions during the course of their daily lives, as well as determine how much control they had in these situations. After monitoring the study participants for a 1-week period, it was found that people with the highest levels of mental health changed their strategy for managing emotions based on the amount of control they had in a given situation. In other words, when the study participants had less control over a situation, they were more likely to accept the outcome, as they realized there was little they could do to change things. In situations where they had more control, the study participants focused their efforts on attempting to create positive change. So the take-home message from this study is that flexibility with how you think and act is critical when it comes to maintaining a sense of peace and calm in your daily life. For my sixth strategy, it's helpful to be optimistic. I remember being in grade 11 English class and stumbling upon a quote by the English philosopher Thomas Hobbes. The quote was, "Life is nasty, short, and brutish." I must have been really having a day at the time, because that quote has always stuck with me. Fortunately, it hasn't become my daily mantra. However, as you can probably imagine, this quote consistently represents someone's daily outlook. It's going to be awfully hard to create a sense of peace and calm in your mind. Why? As it stands currently, your mind's already on the lookout for danger. With a harsh negative outlook on life, your mind's primed to seek out the negative and all the potential danger that comes with it. So how do we fix this pattern? In short, be more optimistic. On the surface, this might sound a bit fluffy and unlikely to work, but there's good science to back it up. In a 2015 study by Dr. Sandra Dolkos and colleagues, they found that optimistic thinking can change areas of the brain which create anxious feelings. To summarize quickly, Dr. Dolkos and his team found that optimistic thinkers had larger orbital frontal cortexes, which is an area of the brain that's heavily linked to sensory areas and limbic system structures involved with emotion. And because of this, these study participants experienced less anxiety when compared to people with smaller orbital frontal cortexes. So, thinking optimistically can literally change the size and functionality of your brain. So clearly, we want to become more optimistic in our pursuit of a calm, peaceful mind. And to help do so, I'm going to quickly go over a 4-step plan to help improve optimism. First, to be more optimistic, it's helpful to recognize when you're being negative. And doing this can be a bit tricky sometimes, as being negative can begin to permeate our daily thoughts and behaviors without really realizing the extent of it. However, if you're going to get better at changing this pattern, making a strong effort to increase awareness is always the first step. Second, I encourage you to search for the positives in your daily life. And I don't mean in a Pollyanna sort of way. For any millennial or Gen Z younger viewer watching this video, Pollyanna means being an excessively cheerful or optimistic person. So the goal here isn't to be over the top positive, but to search for facts that can help you to be more positive or optimistic about a thought or situation. For my third step, when it's difficult to find positives, use reframing whenever possible. Inevitably, you'll encounter thoughts or situation where the answer to the question, "What's good about this?" is a resounding nothing. In these cases, you'll want to find a way to reframe the thought or situation, which means to view things in a manner that helps provide a positive meaning. For example, let's say you recently began an exercise and health eating plan and discovered after the first 2 weeks that you gained 5 pounds. This can be viewed as a significant negative, or it can simply be reframed as feedback. You now know one approach that doesn't work. You simply need to adjust your approach until you find something that does work. And even though it might be a bit discouraging, it doesn't need to become a reason to be negative or to quit. And for my fourth and final strategy for becoming more optimistic, prioritize time each day to focus on what's going well. When life is busy and stressful, it can be easy to slip into a pattern of focusing on things like what needs to be done, what isn't going well now or in the past, or what potential problems lie ahead. To change this pattern, begin by spending at least 5 minutes each day to focus on what's going well in your life. This can include big areas such as health or relationship, and extend all the way to smaller areas such as looking forward to what you're eating at your next meal. And for anyone watching this video that feels highly pessimistic about their prospects for change, I have a challenge and some encouragement for you. Devote the next 66 days to following this 4-step optimism plan. Why 66 days? In a 2009 study by Dr. Philippa Lally and colleagues, they found the amount of time it takes to change a behavior can range from as little as 18 days to upwards of 254 days, with an overall average of 66 days to create a new habit. I know that 21 days to form a habit has always been the standard, and that's what's typically been mentioned, but an average of a little over 2 months in the grand scheme of life is still a relatively short amount of time to create a new habit. And my 7th and final strategy for calming anxious minds, I encourage you to make time to be in nature. One of the great benefits of living in Northern Ontario is you either live in or have quick access to beautiful scenery and the great outdoors. There's something special about being in nature. The longer you spend time in nature, it's almost as if our internal clock slows down and we become more recalibrated at the correct pace, speed of nature. And at that pace, strong feelings of peace and calm tend to emerge. But don't take my word for it. In a 2016 study by Dr. Patricia Martin and Dr. Eric Breimer, they found that people who feel connected to nature have lower levels of anxiety. And surprisingly, you may not even have to be in nature to enjoy the psychological benefits. In a 2017 study by Dr. Daniel Cox and colleagues, they found that people who live in neighborhoods with trees, birds, and shrubs experience better mental health, including lower levels of anxiety. And if that isn't enough to convince you about the power of nature, there's another study by Dr. Ian Alcock and colleagues, which found that simply having a view of a natural green space out your window contributes to improved mental health. But with all of these studies, there's one critical ingredient. You must take time to enjoy and connect with nature. And if time is a concern, recent research shows that the psychological benefits of being in nature can be experienced in as little as 40 seconds. So to provide a quick recap of the 3 strategies for calming an anxious mind from today's video, first, it's important to make peace with acceptance. If the situations in life you're unable to influence, you're left with one option to help reduce feelings of stress and anxiety. And that is to recognize that there are many things in life that are simply beyond our control, and become better at making peace with that. Fortunately, many of these things tend to work out. Second, it's important to be optimistic. This doesn't mean that you walk through the day being blindly positive about everything. Rather, it's about evaluating thoughts and situations in ways where there can be an optimistic bent. And doing so can actually help to rewire the brain in a way that helps to reduce anxious feelings. And for my third and final strategy from today's video, I encourage you to make time to be in nature. The science is overwhelming in the favor of how many benefits there are to being in nature for reducing feelings of stress and anxiety. Even simply viewing nature provides benefits as well, so prioritizing small amounts of time to enjoy a view of nature can help to reduce feelings of anxiety. So I hope you found these strategies helpful for calming an anxious mind. If you did, I encourage you to subscribe to this channel by clicking the subscribe button below. And if you ring the bell, you'll be notified the next time we release a video. And of course, feel free to like and share the video. If you have questions about the material, please leave a comment and I'll do my best to respond to it in a timely manner. If you're experiencing challenges implementing the steps in this video, please contact us at Sullivan Associates Clinical Psychology. Thank you for watching.